I'm bummed. I picked out an Eagles shirt to wear today, a green, and I get in here, and this producer, Paul Franz, MacGyver Franz, says these new digs we got here for a studio, I can't use it because we got this green background. So the Eagles shirt's out the window here. I got to wear the Diamondbacks. So this was not my planned attire for today.
It seems like they're chasing you with this color thing.
It is. But, I'm into with your head. I wear earth tone colors more. I'm very, the redhead
very
thing.
Earthy. You're an earthy person.
This is just throwing me off today. One team that was not thrown off on Saturday was our Penn State Nittany Lions. Look at that transition. You like that?
Transition. Very smooth.
By the way, I'm Eric Stark. This is Mike Gross. We're doing a show called The Low Post about sports. Let's get into it, Mike. Penn State owns 66-10. They beat Coastal Carolina. A team that has a nickname that's based on a Canterbury Tale rooster.
These are academic institutions.
But Penn State, they sort of ruled the roost, I thought, on.
That's right. The cunning and wit of the Chanticleer was not.
I couldn't even pronounce it, so I wasn't going to try.
Was not a crucial factor in that game. It's absolutely ridiculous that Penn State was playing this team. It was an absurd game, and probably not a whole lot of conclusions can be drawn from it. But 66-10.
I want to ask you in a moment what impressed you the most about the win, but I think the reasons why they were playing was the athletic director for Coastal Carolina was a Penn State graduate and was the center on the 69 team, and they were honoring the 69 team during the game and halftime.
You're being very, very kind to Penn State. If it wouldn't have been Coastal Carolina, it would have been some other one AA stiff.
Well, that's why the guy was there.
That's why it was that particular one AA stiff. Yeah.
Sure. Were there anything? Who and what impressed you about this game? Anybody on Penn State side?
This is, I think, my 8th season covering Penn State. So at the beginning of my time, it was pretty lean, and back then, especially offensively, and especially early in the year, there was a lot of. Guys staring at the sideline going, what are we doing? And during the TV timeouts, you'd see these comically chaotic huddles where people are yelling at each other and carrying on. There a lot of jumping off sides, a lot of 12 men on the field, kids who didn't know where they were supposed to go. There was none of that on Saturday. None of that at all. I thought they were very, very organized as an offensive football team. Did not make a lot of the sloppy mistakes that you expect to see early in the year, even from good teams. I don't know if anybody watched UCLA and Tennessee last night.
Yeah.
That was a thrilling finish to that game, but there was a lot of sloppy stuff going on before that. I think part of it is that Penn State is very, very experienced offensively. And part of it probably was Coastal Carolina. They were able to keep it real simple and still dominate. But I think they're going to be a good offensive team, and I think it was impressive that they made so few mistakes and were so sharp and had such a good rhythm to everything they did offensively.
I think that is a key, Mike, to having a good season. If you're making those mistakes early on or you can't get a play in on time, that's a barometer of how your season's going to be. If it's chaotic on the sideline, I think that's going to sort of come over into the game as well.
And I think maybe Galen Hall might have made a difference here over the last couple of years, because you see much less of this than you did my first few years covering Penn State, and he wasn't there then as the offensive coordinator. So maybe that's a factor. And again, I think being so experienced and particularly having such an experienced offensive line, I think is really kind of the engine that drives that. And that was, I think they're going to be a good offensive team.
Let's look forward.
Okay.
They play Oregon State this weekend, who lost to Stanford over the week. I guess it was a Thursday night game they played last week. What should scare Penn State fans about the Beavers this weekend? Anything in particular?
Well, a couple things. Number one, they really should have won that game. They were down at the 1 yard line. Guy was going in for a touchdown, and the Stanford kid slapped the ball out of his hands and then went through the back of the end zone, and that's how they lost. They lost by 8 points, and they threw for 400 yards. They had two wideouts who each had 150 yards receiving.
Interesting.
And Penn State, the aspect of the game that Penn State was somewhat shaky at on Saturday was pass defense.
Sure.
So I think there's that. And I also think the fact that Oregon State did play Thursday and will have like 10 days to prepare, 9 or 10 days to prepare. And, this is an NFL coach that they have, Mike Riley, a guy who's really been around.
San Diego Chargers.
I think he's a pretty good football coach. So he may be able to look at some of the things, particularly in terms of pass defense, that Penn State does and maybe victimize them a little bit.
We need to talk about pro football now. The season starts Thursday. And I'm excited about the season starting. But with the hometown team, the Philadelphia Eagles, there are some question marks I still have about these guys, and they're getting older. That window of opportunity seems to be slowly closing, Mike. What are some keys you see for a good season for the Eagles?
Well, I think you just hinted at one of them. The window is closing, so I think organizationally they need to act like it is, and they need to start making player moves with that in mind. Everybody says they got to get a wide receiver. It's almost like that's such an obvious observation that it's almost like banal to even say it, but it seems like they need to. It seems like the fact that the organization doesn't seem to agree with that suggests to you that maybe they're not seeing it as such an urgent thing as everybody else is. Donovan McNabb is either in his last year or his second last year as the Eagles quarterback, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
Michael Westbrook or Brian Westbrook is closer to at this point probably closer to the end of his career than to the beginning. And I think they have to act like that window is. I think they've done a good job of rebuilding their defense. Obviously, Westbrook and McNabb have to be healthy, and one or two of the wide receivers has to, a Hank Baskett or a Reggie Brown, I think, has to step forward.
Yeah, and Reggie Brown is sort of banged up with his hamstring right now, and you got Kevin Curtis who's out right now for at least first 6 weeks with a sports hernia. You hit upon the one with the receivers. I don't want to dwell on that one too much longer, other than I can't believe they didn't address that. And even if you have to overpay, Anquan Bolden is out there. You have 2 number 1 picks. Give him a number 1, a 4th round, and throw in Reggie Brown just to get the deal done. Because then you have Bolden over the middle, and you got Curtis when he gets healthy, to stretch the field. I think you'd be set.
They don't overpay.
No, they don't.
That's an alien language that you're talking in.
Yeah, and years ago, when the Eagles were winning these division titles and could afford to go with, Todd Pinkston wide receiver, the rest of the division wasn't that good. Now the Giants just won the Super Bowl. Dallas is overpaying for
the Giants won the Super Bowl, and they might be the 3rd best team in the division.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you got Dallas that we're going to talk about them in a few minutes. We're going to talk about our division breakdown, but they are loaded with talent, and Jerry Jones will pay for it.
Maybe that's what we're talking about. I think maybe when the window's closing and you have an extreme need, hey, break with your organizational philosophy and overpay.
Yeah, exactly. The other areas I want to bring up that concern me real quick about the Eagles. Lito Shepard, you talk about improving the defense.
Right.
I think it's great they have him back. They should be strong in the secondary, but if he keeps talking so much, they're going to be forced to do something, or he's going to become a detriment in the locker room. I think that's an area that concerns me.
6 weeks ago, it looked like that was going to be no big deal. Everybody's cool. Everybody's very professional.
Good
We're great
boy.
with this.
Yep.
We can make this work. Now it doesn't sound so much that way.
No, and I guess he's speaking up now because once he gets burned in a game, he doesn't have as much leverage.
Right.
He gets burned for a touchdown. Defensive end's a little bit of a concern. They cut McDougal, which is not a big deal, but they've got some injuries on the defensive end spot, and they cut him. The day later, the Giants go and sign the guy, and I'm thinking, okay, the Giants need a defensive end. You let one get away. Nothing else, I would have hung on to him for a few weeks just so your division rival couldn't have gotten him. And the other thing is David Akers. He's not as accurate anymore. The leg doesn't have as much oomph anymore. I'm a little concerned about long field goals with the Eagles. It could come back to haunt him if he's got to kick 40 and in as opposed to being able to kick 40 and the 40. He used to be able to hit them from
it's one of those
50 yards out, not anymore.
It's one of those things that you notice when it gets screwed up.
Yes. He doesn't have the range anymore, and that's something they need to look at.
Doesn't.
What about the rest of the divisions? Let's stay in the Eagles division. I don't see the Eagles winning this division. Maybe making the playoffs, but I'm picking the Cowboys.
I'm picking the Cowboys, too. In fact, I'm picking the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl. I really think they are top to bottom. I think maybe the best roster in the NFL, top to bottom, in the whole league, not just the NFC. I think that I have the Eagles going to the wild card. I think they're better than the Giants. I think that the best thing about the Giants last year was their defensive line, without question. And they lost the 2 best defensive linemen, Strahan and Umanura. I just think to some extent they caught lightning in a bottle last year. So I see them as maybe a 9-7 third place team. I think the Redskins are going to be bad.
If we look at the NFC North, the Vikings, Packers, Bears. Detroit Lions. I'm going to give the edge to the Vikings, but say the Packers could be a player in there if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. But the Vikings, their defense is going to be really good, and offensively,
weapons offensively too. And I think they have a pretty good coach offensively too. So, Childress, I think he's.
Who are you picking?
I picked the Vikings too. I don't want to agree too much with this argument. That's what I have. I have Green Bay getting the wild card, getting the other wild card.
It could have an injury. I hate to go in and say, well, injuries play a factor. It plays a factor for every team, but I think it's very key for Green Bay to have a successful year.
That's just not as a fan, Starkey.
All right, so I do look at Green Bay a little bit more of a critical eye. We want to go out to NFC South. Interesting. I think that's a really interesting one. I'll let you go first. So,
well, I think the Saints, who came very, very close 2 years ago and kind of had their fallback year last year. I just like a lot of the individuals on that team. Drew Brees, Marcus Colston from Harrisburg, Reggie Bush. I think they got a lot of offensive talent, and I don't think that's a great division.
I looked at when I was doing my little breakdown. I overlooked the Saints completely. They've got a lot of great weapons on offense. I'm not sure about the defense. I look at the Carolina Panthers as a team. I saw them a little bit in the preseason. They beat up on the Redskins in the game I saw on the NFL Network. But they got two good running backs with Jonathan Stewart and also...
who's the quarterback there, Starkey?
Jake Delhomme, come back from Tommy John surgery, and he's pretty healthy right now. Okay. Got a good receiving core. Steve Smith out for a couple games. I like what they can do.
All right.
Okay, that's a division. It seems like it's up for grabs. And that division, what happens normally is the team that does bad, like finishes last, gets the easy schedule the year before, makes a couple little changes in the offseason, and they winds up winning the division. So I'm looking at the Panthers to be that bad team last year to move up. They're going to have an easier schedule this year as well.
I'll buy that.
Maybe that's my diamond in the rough here or whatever. NFC West.
I don't see how it can be anybody but Seattle.
Yeah, it's just
a bad division.
It's just a really bad division. I'm going to say Seahawks by default. I mean, who else do you take there? And we'll jump over to the AFC quick. Our producer's going like this 5-5. We give him a time frame.
We're not. That's
ignore
him.
Just ignore him. Yeah. Is the most obvious one the Patriots?
Yeah.
I thought so too.
Yes,
probably them, and I'm going to say probably them in Dallas in the Super Bowl. But
well, I have a slightly different.
Good. I'm glad we're not the same on everything here. Gee. Patriots, I'm going to take in that division. You know what? I think the Jets could. I like what they did on the defense. Of course, I'm a Brett Favre fan, so I think they make the wild card.
I have the Jets in the wild card too.
Oh, gee, you think am I looking on your sheet?
Sorry.
Jeez, we got watching over my shoulder when I type this up. Who do you got in the Central?
You mean the North?
Yeah, I meant the North. It used to be called the Central, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it's so confusing, but there's no way around it. I had the Pittsburgh Steelers. A little bit by default there. I think they have one of the best defenses in the league. I like their coach. I like Roethlisberger a little bit. That's a solid team.
I was thinking about who I should put there. I do fantasy football, and Gil Smart is in our league. I shouldn't even bring up his name. Some people don't like Gil Smart. He's a Steelers fan. He's actually a good guy, people. He says he's a Steelers fan, long-time Steelers. He says, I'm worried about the Steelers this year. Doesn't like their defense as much. Offensively, they're going to put up points. Their head coach is really into the offense.
Right.
And Roethlisberger had a great year last year. Santana Holmes was coming on. If Floyd Parker's healthy. But the defense looks like it's not the same. I'm taking the Cleveland Browns to win that division.
Wow. See, I'm thinking they're going to have. I think they're going to have a fallback. That's my sense of it. I've never heard you so conflicted about name dropping, Starkey. I'm stunned.
Well, that's the day that
normally one of your normally that's right in your wheelhouse.
That name's a hot.
It is hot potato.
Hot potato. The North, there is a North division.
Well, that was the North. Now we're going to the South.
That's what they. Oh, gee, this is so confusing. These things.
The South is Jacksonville, Indianapolis, etc.
See, and I think of Indianapolis. I don't think of the South.
No, you don't. No, you
don't. With that in mind, I'm going to take Indianapolis to win that division again. But I think the gap is closing. The Jaguars are going to get closer. Are going to be better off. It should be a playoff team as well.
Well, I actually picked Jacksonville. They've been close. They've been close for a while. I'm not normally a huge fan of these defense ground game teams, and that's what they are. But I think they're very well organized. They have a lot of good athletes. I think it's that kind of top to the bottom of the roster kind of situation. Also, Peyton Manning is for real hurt, I believe. I think he's really hurt. And I mean, this could be a division where Jacksonville goes 13-3 and the Colts go 12-4 or something like that.
Wow.
I mean, this could be a fairly strong division, actually.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick. I really impressed by your pick. The other thing is the Colts, who I picked, have to go against 8 teams that made the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
it is stacked against them.
Of the teams that have a chance to win the Super Bowl, they have the most difficult schedule.
Yeah.
They really do.
I guess I looked at it like until somebody beats them, I'm going to stick with them. They've been so good over the years.
Yeah, I mean, people think like they dropped off last year. They went 13-3 last year.
Yeah, it's a great point. The other thing is Paula Wolf took Peyton Manning in our fantasy league. I'm name dropping. And I'm a little bit worried with her pick as well. I like her to see her.
You're on much safer ground with Paula Wolf.
I think so too. No question. I think so too. That's why I felt a lot more at ease with that one. The West is one of these divisions where, again, I don't think it's that.
It's very similar to the NFC West.
Yeah,
really.
There's really one team.
I just think there's one good team, and
head and shoulders.
It's San Diego. I think they're a very good team.
Yeah, and I could actually see them making the Super Bowl, depending how their regular season goes, where the Patriots have to play them at. It could come down to the Patriots and Chargers in the division championship game round. And
last year, those two teams played in the playoffs, and the 21-12, New England. The Chargers were without for all or part of that game without Antonio Gates, LaDainian Tomlinson, who might be the best player in the NFL,
number one in our fantasy league,
and their quarterback,
who had ACL surgery the week before. He had knee surgery and played in the game. Probably shouldn't have. So.
And another interesting thing about this is the Chargers and the Patriots might have the two easiest schedules in the entire league.
How does that happen?
Which is certainly not the Pete Rozelle parody formula that we've made fun of so often in the past. So I am going with the San Diego Chargers over the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl.
Wow, that's very good.
That's my pick.
I'm not making a pick. I'm not doing it. I'm going to wait till the end of the year and I'll make it.
Yeah, it's enormously presumption, but that's why we get the big money.
Because I probably would be very similar to you, and then it just looks like I'm copying you. So I'm going to just go with your picks. Whatever he said is what we're doing.
That's right. Take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank. Another good show right here for you guys. Hey, thanks again for tuning in to the Low Post. I think we've said enough. The producer's going crazy. We went way over our time. He goes, he's thinking, why does he even put his hand up?
It doesn't feel like we went over our time. We appreciate when you put your hand up.
We do. Hey, until next week, which we'll talk more Penn State, some more football. We'll have a lot to talk about. We'll see you again. He's Mike Gross. I'm Eric Stark. And for the producer, as always, Paul MacGyver France. We'll see you again from the Low Post.